Welcome back to Movies TV Mad, and you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, of course. And welcome to Monday's edition of the dceu Daily. One of the most frustrating criticisms of a film that nobody's seen yet is people saying that they want the Flash movie to be about the Flash. Them trying to say, of course, allude to Andy Muschietti's Flash movie not being about Barry Allen, aka the Flash. Let me be absolutely clear about this. The Flash movie is about Barry Allen front and center. It's about Barry Allen's struggle to try and get back something he's lost, his family unit. This is the most beautiful story you can tell about this character. And Ezra Miller's performance in the Snyder Cut touched with that beautifully with the prison scenes with his father, Henry Allen. He's a brilliant Flash, a brilliant Barry Allen, as is Grant Gustin. You can prefer one or the other. What you can't say is say a movie you haven't seen yet isn't about the lead character. Was Captain America Civil War not about Steve Rogers? Of course it was. It was about Steve Rogers' emotional battle to protect Bucky from S.H.I.E.L.D. From, Tony Stark, Tony Stark, Iron Man. That film is absolutely about Steve Rogers and Captain America, but it featured many MCU characters. We've got to be realistic here. This film is going to be the way it is because of what the broader audience wants to see now. You can't do standalone movies, every single movie, and get away with it. Of course you can do offshoots like the Joker and other DC movies. Of course you can. No one's saying you can't do any standalone movies, but the central universe must have cameos, Easter eggs, and must celebrate all of these characters in DC live action within the DCEU. One of the things they're going to do is unite everything you've ever seen in live action. And this is why you've heard the rumours from Daniel RPK that Barry will be treading lightly over every single DCEU movie. And I told you, and I can tell you exclusively today, here on the DCEU Daily. The DCEU live action universe won't be the only kind of movies and TV shows in, part of the multiverse that Barry will be treading over. And that's very exciting. For me it is. But that does not mean just because Michael Keaton's Batman is in this movie, or Ben Affleck's Batman's in this movie, or Sasha Calle's Supergirl, whichever version of Supergirl she's going to play, is in this movie, that it's not Barry's movie. This is what the audience want to see. A celebration of the DCEU thus far. Who doesn't want to see Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn in a Flash movie crossing over? Who doesn't want Ezra Miller to mix with these actors? Who wouldn't want that? But it's still absolutely a Barry Allen Flash movie. Let me assure you of that. Now I know who the people are who are saying they want to see a Flash movie and this is not going to be a Flash movie, right? It's people who are upset. I understand that you wanted something else. Now what I would say directly to these Snyder fans, and I'm a fan of Snyder's DCEU, as I say every single day, you must be bored of me saying it every single day and repeating myself, is that Zack Snyder himself was going to implement a Flashpoint scenario either in Justice League 3 or in a Flashpoint movie himself. So how can you criticize something when the man you stand, the creative you stand, was going to do it anyway? This movie was always going to be this animal. It was always going to be this way. In fact, the original Snyderverse vision for the first Flash movie was Flashpoint, because I remember everyone complaining when it was announced. So that was Snyder's plan all along, to do his arc, a Flashpoint movie, so he could literally reset the universe again for another creative to come in. Because Snyder wasn't ever going to be, running the DCEU forever. He had an arc, then he was going to step away, Flashpoint movie, then we reset the universe. Exactly what Andy Muschietti's going to do. Now, of course, I can't sit here with a straight face and tell you this is definitely going to be the bestest thing ever. I don't know. But there is evidence to point towards Andy Muschietti being a great director and him putting together a great Flash movie. How many directors have successfully rebooted something iconic? I can tell you one. Andy Muschietti rebooted It. It is Stephen King's most successful, most, knowable character. When you think about It, you think about Stephen King, or you think about The Shining, right? Well, we know they tried to do a Shining sequel with Ewan McGregor that didn't work. Well, Andy Muschietti did It Chapter 1, and it worked. It Chapter 2 is kind of, people are split on it, fair enough, I think it's a great movie. But Andy did a great job with rebooting something so huge. So if he can do that, he's the man for the job. And he's also a huge DC fan from the Easter eggs he's left in his It movies as well. So he has heart. He has love for this. He's brilliant. And he's, 6 months to make this movie shows you how huge this movie's going to be. But it's absolutely the Flash's movie. I can guarantee you of that. How can I guarantee you of that? Because I know. Because I trust these people. They've told us. Andy and Barbara didn't do what happened to Zach, right? They didn't cut him loose from his own vision. It's nothing to do with them. They're good family people making a movie together. And it's a beautiful thing to see this brother and sister team, the love they have for each other, the pureness they have for each other, and the talent that they have. Barbara's a great producer, Andy's a great director, and I've told you why. Yes, it's true. Andy has a very, very small CV, but that doesn't mean anything. Denis Villeneuve made a Blade Runner sequel. It didn't do well at the box office. It's a great movie. So, there are no guarantees. You could have Steven Spielberg doing a Flash movie and it could be terrible. So, what Walter Hamada has done has brought in directors and writers that he's worked with via New Line Cinema. And, you work with people that you trust, and are not going to give you problems. Of course, partially this movie is a studio-run movie because the studio want to reevaluate and reset the DC live-action universe. It's a good idea to bring all the DC live-action iterations into one universe. Imagine the potential. With 5 days to DC fandom to go, we are going to see the opening sequence of the Flash movie. And that will prove to you that Andy and Jim and Walter know exactly what they're doing. I believe this movie will be a hit. I believe Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom will be a hit. I believe Shazam! Fury of the Gods will be a much bigger hit than the first Shazam, which people loved, families loved. Anyway, it's not a flop. How many more times do I have to tell you that? Black Adam, a hugely anticipated movie with a great cast. I can't wait. Bring it on. We're going to see sneak peeks and discussions about these 5 upcoming movies, let alone what's going on HBO Max. The vision is good. Finally, we're getting slates, we're getting announcements of things that are going to happen. Because from the inception of the DCEU, we got slates that never happened because the studio and Snyder didn't agree with the direction. Now the studio and Walter Hamada are on the same page. And that's a good thing. That is a very good thing. Finally, we have a cohesive franchise run by someone who has experienced running a successful horror franchise. Now, mate, it doesn't matter. I remember Todd Phillips saying, who is Walter Hamada? This guy who ran a little horror division at New Line Cinema. It doesn't matter how little the division was. It matters that, in fact, he was successful with it. So Walter Hamada is no mug. And I understand that some people are upset. that, you know, the Snyderverse was disbanded. It's very upsetting for me as well. But it happened. So listen, the responsibility of Warner Brothers and the people resetting the DCEU, the DC live action universe, is to make it as popular as possible. Because when you're taking a big IP like Marvel or DC or whatever, it's just not your job to make great movies. It's your job to make it accessible to families, children, the broader audience. There are many, film divisions out there, individual standalone films for people who like the indie type movies. And it's not like the DCEU hasn't got those kind of movies. Joker, Man of Steel, the Snyder Cut, BVS, indie movies made by an auteur. So we've had them. And the Flash movie is looking to celebrate all of that as well. Because even though, in terms of a broader audience and a business model, the Snyderverse wasn't very accessible, and no matter how much I love the Snyderverse and how much some of you people love the Snyderverse, there's no denying that. And so they're reassessing it. They want a successful IP. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what happened. This was the disagreement they had with Snyder. They want a successful franchise. And you know, you can ask the deeper, broader question, what's better, great movies or popularity? Well, Warner Brothers is a business, so they want to create great entertainment with great movies that make as much money as possible, so they can sell the toys. A lot of times, you know, film companies studios get criticised for wanting to sell toys, but they're a business. This is the reality of the situation. No one wants to justify bad movies to make money, right? But at the end of the day, they need to make the most money out of this IP, but still make great movies. Now, since including Justice League, the DCEU hasn't had, let's say, the greatest of movies, Justice League. Now, I would put Aquaman and Shazam as very good comic book movies. But then you got Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman 84 that weren't great. Then you had James Gunn's Suicide Squad, which was a really, really good film. So it's been pretty inconsistent in terms of quality of films. And so you have that. But Walter Hamada had to set his plan up. And his plan will be executed in this Flash movie. Now, we've discussed many a times how they wanted to call it, or Walter wanted to call it, the Worlds of DC. Why do you think that is? It's an unveiling of the multiverse strategy, which was his plan. And so this is what's going to happen. The unification of everything DC live action. So I think this is huge. I think this is extremely important. I want it to work. It might work. It might not work. What are the consequences of it not working? That we have to rest DC live action for a few years and start again with somebody else. That's what would happen. I don't want to see that happen. I think if the Flash movie actually does this successfully and reassesses the DCEU and in the public's mind fixes the DCEU, I'm not saying it necessarily needs fixing, although it kind of does. Let's be honest, there's not a set vision anymore since Snyder's gone, so something has to happen. I think if they pull this off, this will be the biggest Houdini act in movie franchise history, because no movie franchise has ever done this. Now, J.J. Abrams attempted this with Star Trek 2009, and he succeeded. He had the younger version of the Star Trek characters, the original crew, and basically they were from another, they were from an alternate universe. It began so well. Then Star Trek Into Darkness, which I think is a pretty good movie, it's just maybe not a Star Trek movie. And then the third movie, without JJ, simply wasn't fit for purpose. I think it's an okay movie, but it simply wasn't good enough for an anniversary year of Star Trek or anything. So J.J. Abrams, in the end, didn't follow it through, and that is the accusation with JJ. Let's hope his DC vision gets followed through, because I still think he's a really, really good creative when he focuses on creativity and not business. So they nearly did it with Star Trek 2009. In fact, they did get away with it with Star Trek 2009. JJ reassessed the franchise, and if only his second movie was consistent and then the third movie, we still would have been getting a great universe, but it didn't work out. So it's not been successfully done consistently before. So what Warner Brothers are doing here is very ambitious. They have a bit of a mess of a situation to tidy up, because the DCEU is seen by box office analysts and, as I say, the broader audience as a failed franchise. But if you look deeper at the DCEU, you will see a franchise that's made really, really good money. It hasn't always broken records, but if you move away from the actual DCEU, the Joker movie is the most profitable film ever to be made. And it's a DC movie. It's the most profitable, let me say that again, the most profitable comic book movie of all time. No Marvel movie has seen the success of the Joker movie. An Oscar for the actor, a big profit margin, one of the lowest budgets in CBM movie history that's brought in over $1 billion. A critically acclaimed movie that had a standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival. Can you ever imagine a Marvel movie having that? And they won't, because they're owned by Disney, and that's not what they're interested in. Oh, they tried to force it. They tried to shame Hollywood into giving them critical acclaim, but it's fake critical acclaim. We have that over at DC. So during this so-called failing franchise, they made a little film called Joker, and it's the most profitable comic book movie of all time. And that's because of Walter Hamada. Yes, it's Todd Phillips' movie, but the budgetary constraints and the way the movie was made financially was all down to Walter Hamada. It's because of Walter Hamada that that film came in on such a low budget and is the most profitable comic book movie of all time. Now, you can't keep on making cheap comic book movies, but sometimes when you're making a film like the Joker, you're not dumbing down, you're not cheating the audience, because you don't need CGI, you don't need VFX. He's a real life person, the Joker. And there's not even that much action in the Joker movie. It literally is kind of a psychological thriller. It's great. And it works because it didn't take much money. People love the Joker and it made a lot of money. So these are the qualities of Walter Hamada. And we will see next year if his vision for DC live action is going to work. Everyone was saying when there were issues with the Snyderverse, you need to do Flashpoint, you need to start again. It's all about the public. Will they buy this kind of re-evaluation of the DC live action universe? I think, done properly, they will. And of course, everything in life is a gamble. I've been here from the very beginning, since Man of Steel, a movie that I love. I love BVS and I love the Snyder Cut and many other DCEU movies. But it depends what you want out of life, what you want out of these IPs, and Warner Brothers want top dollar. They could have carried on with Snyder, allowed him to finish his arc, which they should have done, then things would have been cleaner. Then they could have done this themselves. But they didn't do that. And of course, we're talking about different leadership. Kevin Sugihara was running Warner Brothers. He was responsible for the ousting of Snyder and the pressure put upon Snyder. He's gone now. It's different leadership, and we're getting new leadership yet again. And we're hoping that David Zaslav and Discovery really kind of do a root and branch, exhaling of the problems at Warner Brothers, and have a really, really good studio with no drama and no issues. But David Zaslav isn't here yet. And this multiverse strategy is happening next year. And a lot more about this multiverse strategy will be explained to us at DC Fandom this Saturday, When we see these clips and these creatives talking about their projects and these future projects announced, we will know a lot more with where we're heading for this universe. And I think at the end of the day, for people going back to I want a Flash movie about Barry Allen and the Flash, that's exactly what you're getting. But also, honestly, they've told you that they're using the Flash and his abilities to reset the universe. They've told us that already. As I say, if rumours are true that he's going to be treading over these movies, I can't wait to see it. Now we know why it's taking so long, why it's taken so long. They have to try. They have to. I don't know everything. I don't know everything they're planning. I don't know the future of certain DCEU actors like Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck. Hopefully, when the Flash movie's finished, they do things that all DC fans can live with. And I think that's part of the multiverse. You can't jettison the Snyderverse fans and say, well, this is about other fans. If you're doing a multiverse strategy, you have to attempt at least. You can't always please everyone, but the moment you stop trying to please everyone, that's where the problem is. It hasn't worked out totally for them at this point, and they're trying something new, something that appeals to everyone. But the truth of the matter is, the only way the broader audience are going to come out is from word of mouth. If the Batman is good, then there will be a feel-good kind of feeling about DC live action again. If Black Adam is good, you have consistency, then the broader audience will come out and watch that movie. And then if the Flash movie is good and it reassesses the franchise brilliantly, then word of mouth, they'll go to the movie theatre and everyone all of a sudden, like they did for the first Avengers movie, will be screaming about how the Flash and the DCEU is the bestest ever. And it's back to its best. And then you got Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which we hope's a great movie. Then you've got Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Then we've got Ta-Nehisi Coates and J.J. Abrams' Superman, and more movies will be announced. I'm assuming 2 cinematic movies will be announced. Jim Lee teased on his Stitch the other day that 2 more brand new projects will be announced. Well, there's not any kind of announced movies for the cinema right now apart from Ta-Nehisi Coates' Superman and Fury of the Gods for 2023. So they need another 2 films. So I'm assuming they're going to announce these films at DC Fandom. They need a slate, and then they need to start thinking about 2024. Maybe the 2024 stuff will be announced at a later date. We're going to have to wait and see. But I do foresee 4 or 5 movies for movie theatres a year, and then another bunch of stuff for DC live action on HBO Max. So I think that will be great. So that's what we're going to get, a proper slate. And to be fair to Walter Hamada, most things he's announced, apart from the Aquaman spin-off movie, are happening and have happened. And that's great. We may even get an announcement, maybe, and this will maybe anger people, an Amber Heard Mira movie. Who knows? Who knows what we're going to get? Nobody really knows. I still believe this is an exciting time to be a DC fan. I think you as fans and me as fans have to think about this very carefully and stop reacting to box office, to negativity. If you like something, you like it. If something means something to you, then it's great. It doesn't matter about the box office. As I've always said to you, as long as these movies make enough money to keep on going, that's all you need to worry about. But of course, I would love every single DCEU movie next year, released through the theatrical system, to reach $1 billion. 800, 700 to $1 billion. Big profits. People loving it. I hope so. This is what we need now. You know, The Rock's put together the Black Adam movie. He's brought his people in. I hope that works. He's certainly a DC fan. He certainly understands how DC works within the comics. So that should be a great movie as well. But I don't want to hear any shade that the Flash movie isn't about the Flash, because it's absolutely about Barry Allen. And that, my friends, is a fact. And finally today, You know, and I don't like getting people's hopes up with fandom and saying this is definitely going to happen. But is it Mickey Sutton is predicting that David Ayer's cut of his Suicide Squad movie will be released in 2022. Now, Mikey Sutton, like all scoopers, can be wrong and right, so you don't know. But the atmosphere around these rumours seems to be factual. This would be huge. Now, I've said this many times, there's something changing. There's an attitude adjustment towards the Snyderverse at Warner Brothers. Now, I don't know why. I don't know if it's because they know Zaslav and Discovery is coming and they're cleaning house so they don't lose their jobs. This could be it. It could be they know that Zaslav and Discovery will restore the Snyderverse and release the Ayer cut, and they want to show willing by doing it first. This would be a really big move by Warner Brothers Pictures and Sarnoff. Now, as I say, I don't know any facts, but I do believe that the Ayer cut will be released. And I think the way David Ayer played ball with James Gunn's movie, supporting Warner Brothers every chance he gets on Twitter and his socials, tells you something. He obviously was asked to play ball, and he probably said, what's in it for me? Because this is how it works, right? What people say publicly and what people say privately are two very different things. In this era of social media, people don't really understand that. It's a business. It's like watching an episode of Dallas. If you grew up with Dallas or Dynasty, you know what I mean. People get a bit of dirt on someone, they get their own way, something along these lines. Now, Warner Brothers were desperate for James Gunn's The Suicide Squad to be promoted positively because they knew the Snyderverse fans were sniffing blood. So the only person who could calm this situation down was the director that they wronged with the first Suicide Squad movie. So I do believe that the Ayer cut is coming. May be announced at DC Fandom, but may even be announced in the new year. As I say, don't take what I'm saying as read and then after DC Fandom say, oh, you said this, you said that. When I want to tell you a fact, I'll tell you a fact and I'll end it with the words fact. When I tell you I've heard something, that means it's not a fact. But I'm telling you I've heard it because if I've got a YouTube channel that talks about DC and Doctor Who and entertainment at large, what's the point of keeping these things to myself? You know my numbers. My YouTube channel isn't successful at all. So I don't really have any kind of ulterior motive when I say these things. All I'm saying to you as someone who knows people, I have a very, very good feeling. I don't know about the Snyderverse being restored, but the attitude towards the Snyderverse is changing over at Warner Brothers as well. So I believe it will be restored somehow. Eventually, we might have to wait a couple of years or so because Zach's busy. But I do believe the Ayer cut is coming. And for the last couple of minutes of the show, let's discuss the Ayer cut. What kind of things do we think that we will get? Comments down below, please, in the Ayer cut that's different to the theatrical version. I think you're looking at a darker take, a bit more brutality, a bit more character development, and loads more Leto Joker. Now, apparently this is Leto Untamed. Now, Leto is one of the best actors of our generation. Well, not my generation, your generation, but this era of film. He's a brilliant actor and a great pick as Morbius, by the way. And so we will see a lot more Joker. The big mistake, and David Ayer's admitted this, that Joker wasn't the villain in the first Suicide Squad movie. If you've got the Joker in your film, make him the fucking villain, make him the threat, and then Harley Quinn's character is torn between her loyalty to the Suicide Squad and the Joker. And that works as a piece of storytelling and fiction a lot more than what they did in the theatrical cut. But even in the Ayer cut, he's not the villain of the movie, as far as I know. I wish that was the case. But there is about 40 minutes of extra footage. Now, 40 minutes of extra footage changes everything. It changes the way you edit the movie, the way David would have edited it, the tone, the narrative. 40 minutes is a long time. I know the Snyder Cut had a lot more extra footage. It's not about the extra footage. or should I say, it's not about how much extra footage you've got. Even in the extended cut of Suicide Squad they released on Blu-ray a few years back, it changed things. There were extended Joker and Harley moments. It worked better. And this will be David Ayer's definitive vision, and it's something we must see as soon as possible. This has been the DCEU Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. I will be back tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so you don't miss this perfection, and I will see you again soon. Until then, goodbye.